late 1950s and early 60s, the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States took an ominous turn which shocked the American people.
Wait a minute. They put a satellite in orbit around the Earth? I think I said something like, golly gee, son of a gun. I didn't really say it that way, but similar.
A group of us actually climbed to the top railings of the test stands and watched Sputnik go over as a white dot going across the sky like a meteor.
And of course, all it was doing was going beep, 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 beep. But hey, they put it up there, you know.
The new strategic high ground was space. And the Russians continued to chalk up an impressive list of firsts.
They had launched the first man, Yuri Gagarin. They had launched the first lady, and they were really in all areas way ahead of us.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Reality sets in for a moment and say, well, how are we going to do that? 10 years? That's a short time. And so it was a mixture of exhilaration and maybe even depression to think about how you're going to do this.
With the Russians leading the space race and America desperate to catch up, von Braun saw an opportunity to fulfill his lifelong dream.
He was very charismatic. You know, he could sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo.
Even before Kennedy's announcement, von Braun's team was designing a family of rockets they called Saturn. First on the pad was the Saturn I, almost 200 feet tall and with a thrust of 1.5 million pounds. The Saturn I successfully demonstrated the key technique, which would be vital in building a much larger moon rocket. This was the concept of staging, in effect stacking multiple rockets one on top of the other.
If you tried to go to orbit with all one stage, the amount of fuel and the size of the engines required would have to push the entire weight of that first stage to that full velocity. They learned that through analysis that the best way to do it was to get to orbit using multiple stages. So that the first stage would give you a certain amount of what they call delta V, change in velocity from 0 to a certain speed, and then you would drop off that whole stage, all of its tanks, all of its engines, and all the weight associated with it, so the second stage had much less mass to push.
But to go beyond Earth's orbit would require more than 2 stages.
And when you do the calculations, the most efficient way to build a moon rocket, one to get to the moon, turned out to be a 3-stage vehicle.
On paper, the 3-stage concept looked like this. Stage 1 would have a cluster of 5 engines, the likes of which had never been built before, called the F1. On liftoff, each one would need to burn almost 3 tons of fuel a second, just to lift the enormous rocket off the pad. Stage 2 would also cluster 5 engines, the smaller J2. The third stage would use a single J2 engine, which would have to fire more than once, to place the elements of the Apollo spacecraft first into Earth's orbit and then on a course to the moon. When assembled, it would be the largest flying machine the world had ever seen. With the construction of the first stage well underway, the building of the second fell to the engineers at North American Aviation in California.
Stage 2 was a technical challenge of the first order. We had some unique manufacturing problems, we had interesting design problems.
The main headache for the Stage 2 team was that the Apollo spacecraft, The command and lunar modules sitting on top of the Saturn V kept getting heavier as their designs evolved. That inevitably meant that the rocket below them had to be made lighter. A radical solution was needed to shed weight from the second stage. Normally, two separate tanks stored the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen fuels, with a temperature difference between them of over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. At both ends of each tank was a strong, relatively heavy, dome-shaped bulkhead. The stage would now have only one tank, and the fuels would be separated by just one divider, known as the common bulkhead. This arrangement had a double benefit. It got rid of one of the heavy bulkheads, and it reduced the overall length of the stage. But it also meant that two liquids at vastly different temperatures were right next to each other.
We insulated the liquid hydrogen tank in the early days with a honeycomb insulation. We put it on in big vacuum chambers, and we sucked the honeycomb down onto the metal, pulled it tight, and let the adhesive set. But all through the early stages, we had problems with the honeycomb insulation popping off the vessel.
This is Apollo 7 Launch Control. We passed the 6-minute mark in our countdown for Apollo 11, the flight to land of the first men on the moon. We're on time at the present time for our planned liftoff of 32 minutes past the hour. Coming up shortly, that swing arm up at the spacecraft level will come back to its fully retracted position. This should occur at the 5-minute mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues. Skip Chauvin informing the astronauts that the swing arm now coming back. 4 minutes and counting, we are go for Apollo 11. We'll be coming up in the automatic sequence about 10 or 15 seconds from this time. The vehicle starting to pressurize as far as the propellant tanks are concerned, and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Firing command coming in now. We're on an automatic sequence as the master computer supervises hundreds of events occurring over these last few minutes. 2 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Oxidizer tanks in the second and third stages now have pressurized. T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds. The third stage completely pressurized. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong reported back when he received the good wishes. Thank you very much. We know it will be a good flight. Good luck and Godspeed. Apollo 11, Houston, turns to us that we're seeing a view from outside plus a little of the inside. It appears you've taken the camera away from the left window. Now, over. That's correct. We're moving it back and reconfiguring for interior lighting. Roger. So we can still see the Earth through the left window, and it appears that we can see a floodlight off to the left, either that or some sun shafting through the hatch window. It's a floodlight. Now we're coming in. Can't quite make out who that is. That's Big Mike Collins there. There you go, a little bit of... Hello there, sports friends. You got a little bit of me, but Neil's in the center couch and Buzz is doing the camera work this time. Roger, it's a little dark now, 11. Maybe a bigger f-stop might help. Yeah, that didn't work. Now where I sleep is down underneath this couch. Houston, Roger. Slowly sinking into the sack there. That's really comfortable. Forgot to give Buzz his flashlight back. Now it's really an excellent picture now that I'm looking at on our monitor, which is about 12 seconds before the networks can get it out due to the conversion that we have here on our TV converter. We're looking at the controls and display, the main display console, and we can see the disky up on the panel. Over. Well, it'd be nice you could take a look at all the circuit breakers, make sure the right ones are in and the right ones are out. All right, Big Brother's watching. Yeah, we're glad of it. Hey guys, you've been doing a good job of watching this, John. I appreciate it. Spacecraft's been beautiful, 11. We had really no complaints at all. Things are really great. Can you copy over? Alright, do we copy? And, yes, we pan back out to the distance at which we see the Earth, Apollo 11 signing on.
What's your favorite idea? Mine is being creative.